You sound just like every other asshole on YouTube. You got your 5150, you got your vintage 30, and you're gonna prove how totally unique your sound is by doing exactly what the last 10,000 tone bros already did. You're gonna play tighter by letting your computer play guitar better than you can. And you're gonna be heavier by copying the same signal chain as every other drop-tuned sheep with a TikTok account. And you're gonna stand out by completely disappearing into the background noise. Congratulations, you have just become audio wallpaper. Maybe, just maybe, it's time to stop blending in. And for a whole lot less money than a new guitar amp that sounds just like a 5150, but better. Hey there, I'm Glenn Fricker. I don't have any gold records, I don't have a Grammy. What I do have is nearly 30 years of recording broke, pissed off metal bands who actually gave a damn. And I've learned a few valuable things along the way, like how most of the gear you're being told to buy is not that great. Because I've wasted thousands chasing the next big thing because some tone-deaf corporate asshole slapped pro audio onto the box. Just to be clear, it didn't make my recordings better, it just made my wallet lighter. So I started this channel with one goal: to help you avoid making the same dumbass mistakes that I did. To help you cut through the lies, the hype, and the influencer ass kissing to actually get you the results you're looking for. And my greatest achievement after all this time? Being told by a world famous metal guitar player that the manufacturers hold what I do in great disdain. Good. Because I'm not here to sell you bullshit. I am here to tell you the truth. I don't work for the manufacturers, I work for you. And if that pisses off the industry, even better. I have spent a lot of time and way too much money learning one simple truth. The single most important part of your guitar sound is the thing that guitar players never bothered to think about. It's not your amp, it's not your pickups, it's not some holy relic you call tone wood. It's the stupid round thing that makes air move. And if you're playing metal after 2005, congratulations, you've automatically been assigned a vintage 30. Do not pass go, do not collect variety. Now, when I grew up, metal albums were recorded with all kinds of speakers. Greenbacks, T75s, G12Hs, EVM 12Ls, the list goes on and on. Hell, maybe even a car stereo was thrown in there if it worked. We had options, we had personality, and we had mistakes that at least sounded interesting. And now? Thanks to Facebook production groups, you know, the digital daycare centers for insecure mid-scoopers, the vintage 30 is the law. Dare to question it and the tone police will dogpile you faster than a Dunning-Kruger convention with a moderator named Brutal Steve 69 screaming at you, "Bro, that's just how metal works now!" Trust me, I've been there. I got thrown out of one of those groups for daring to make a video that scientifically showed that swapping vacuum tubes out in your amp doesn't do what everybody thinks it does. And apparently that's blasphemy. And the great thing is I'm still getting hate comments on that video, usually from some crusty old fuck saying I use nothing but metal tones while completely ignoring that an entire section of that video was conducted on a 1958 Fender Pro. Guitarists are not the most observant of people, because like a wise man once said, it's easier to fool somebody than convince them that they've been fooled. But I'm not the only one who's sick of the status quo. Turns out, some of us out there actually want something better. A speaker designed for high-gain guitar that doesn't sound like a swarm of wasps attacking a chainsaw. Something that you don't have to EQ the living fuck out of, with no 6 kHz lightning bolt to the eardrum. Something that will actually work in a mix. And that is the brand new Carnivore. And it just might be the speaker that your sound has been begging for. That is, if your so-called friends over on Facebook will let you try something different. I first heard about the Carnivore at last year's NAMM. This is Christian Cola's baby, and it's about crom damn time somebody came up with something new. Now, Christian's a good friend. He's a German metal producer who literally lives down the road from Castle Frankenstein. I'm not even kidding, he even took me there once, and it was freaking awesome. And it's a good reminder that yes, evil experiments are still being conducted in those hills, just in speaker design instead of reanimating corpses. And he teamed up with Eminence with one simple goal: to build a speaker for high-gain players that doesn't suck. Specifically, something that you don't have to EQ the hell out of just to sound passable in a mix. Something that won't turn your rhythms into indistinct mud, and something that doesn't shriek like a pissed off hornet orgy at 6 kHz. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That dreaded box of bees spike baked into every Chinese-made vintage 30 that was built from 2006 to 2021. Thanks, Celestion! Brilliant fucking move! Let's take our best-selling speaker, outsource it to the lowest bidder, and ruin thousands of metal records in the process! And of course, most guitar players didn't even notice. They just saw Vintage 30 on the label and assumed that it would sound good because they listened with their eyes. Now, sure, yes, you can indeed EQ the crap out of it. There's millions of YouTube tutorials about that. That is if you want to surgically remove a tumor from your mix. But wouldn't it be smarter to start with something that doesn't sound like crap in the first place? That's where the Carnivore comes in, because it's actually designed for what we do. High gain tones that hit hard and hold together under a mic and don't sound like your amps being broadcast through a mosquito zapper. Finally, somebody stopped recycling the same tire designs from 1985 and gave metal guitarists a brand new crayon to draw with. No word yet on when they're going to do a bass version, but they damn well should, because bass desperately needs some new finger paint. Now, I know you're going to want to hear this thing all on its own, so I grabbed my trusty guitar fetish, Steve Brown guitar, which is tuned to E-flat. I've got it going through a Bad Cat Lynx 50 with a Caline EQ in front just to kind of clean up the mud a little bit. Really been getting into EQ pedals lately. And this is using one of those wonderful Roswell cab mics. They're definitely the no fizz kind of mic. And this is mic'd dead center with no post EQ going on whatsoever. Fuck! Yeah, I swear I totally nailed that lick before I hit record, and it always happens. I hit record and I forget to breathe. It's something I really got to work on. Anyway, so that's the cab mic, but if we were to run up, say, a 57 like you normally would with a vintage 30, this is what you're going to get. That actually sounds really, really fucking great. Remember, on its own, you might be going for different things than you would in a mix, and I'm going to show you what that's all about in just a minute. But got to remember one thing, don't drop your guitar. And the other really important thing, the Carnivore was designed for a lot of downtune playing. So what I did was I grabbed this incredible Aviator custom 7-string. I'm not much of a 7-string guy these days, but I got to say, this thing really does the thing. Check this out. Once again, that's straight out of the amp with no EQ going on whatsoever. I even turned off the Caline EQ just because this guitar has a bit more spank to it. And if I were to throw out the cab mic, this is going to be a lot duller. Okay, that's really cool. In fact, I know for a fact that's going to work in a mix. Let me show you what I mean. I came over to the console here because I want to show you what's going on, because the inevitable question is going to be, how does this stack up against a vintage 30? And I've got that for you right here. I've done 2 mixes with an SM57, one with Carnivore, one with those beautiful new made in UK vintage 30s, which I'm very, very fond of. I also started out with the cab mic on the Carnivore because I wanted something really different from the standard 57 vintage 30 cliche. So that's what I got here, and that's what you heard at the beginning of the video. And we go to a 57. That's really damn cool. And I like what's going on here because the cab mic has a much more smoother top end. The 57 here actually sounds almost a little bit industrial-like. Like this is something that kind of reminds me of what I would have heard on, say, a Ministry record back in the late 80s. Whereas that cab mic just smooths that right out. Now, those are both captured at different distances from the speaker, so I can't really combine those. But if we take this sound and we go to a vintage 30 with a 57, that's a very nice sound as well. The big question is, do you want to do the same thing everyone else is doing? You know, this is great. There's no question about it. The cab mic on the Carnivore seems to occupy just a completely different space in the mix compared to the 57 Vintage 30. I think that's pretty cool, and I think it's about damn time people started doing things a little bit differently. Now, I want to show you what happens when we combine the Carnivore and the Vintage 30, both with an SM57. Interesting results, I gotta say. I'm pretty damn impressed with that. I also want to take a second here and show you what's going on with the frequency response. So I took some measurements, and here's the Carnivore with the cab mic, and if we drop in the 57, we can see the differences here going on, especially in the top end. It's a lot more energy going on between 1 and 2 kilohertz, and as well between 6 and 10 kilohertz. That's that extended top end. And there's even more bottom end going on as well, which would make sense because the microphone's a whole lot closer to the cabinet. Now, things get really interesting here when we start dropping in the 57 Vintage 30. We can really see the differences going on in terms of where, you know, the tone's going to affect. There's a lot more energy, of course, going on between, say, 100 and 500. And we get some spikes going on at, say, 2 kilohertz, 3, and 4, almost 5 kilohertz there. And that's where a lot of the, you know, the nasty fizziness is going to be. The Carnivore, even with an SM57, seems a lot smoother going on there. Things kind of diverge right around 5.5K all the way down to about 8K. So there is a little less zing there, but without these extra spikes here, the Carnivore seems to be just a little bit smoother. And honestly, I think it sounds a little bit bigger in the mix than a 57 does. And of course, if you really want to see a difference here, we can take a look at one of those 2017 Vintage 30s and see there's just so much more energy going on between 1 kilohertz and 2.5, and then this huge jump from 3 all the way to 6.5, and that's like just nasty. And even then up here, like from 7.5 to like 9 kilohertz, all that. One thing I did want to mention though about the 57 versus say the UK Vintage 30 is even in the above 10K region, like the blue one there being the Vintage 30, there's just so much more going on past 10 kilohertz. And I think that's where the Carnivore gets some of its smoothness as well. I mean, like, and the thing is, you're not going to want to crank up what's above 10K because, you know, you got cymbals going on up there. There's going to be the top end of a vocal. There's all that kind of thing. So in my opinion, I think the Carnivore is actually going to work a little bit better in a mix. And this is just like my first time playing with it too. I just made a couple of tweaks. I haven't found the exact sweet spot for an SM57 with the Carnivore, whereas if you use a cab mic, you can see it's just way smoother across the board. That is like the most idiot-proof microphone I've ever come across when it comes to heavy guitar. It's absolutely killer. You can check it out over at Roswell Microphones because it's just phenomenal. Anyway, let's get to the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's a brand new sound. That's right, something that doesn't sound like a rusty cheese grater. It's not nearly as fizzy as a Vintage 30, even the new ones that are way better than the mid-2000s ones. And best of all, you can get 2 of these things for $318. That is way less than what you're gonna drop for a new set of boutique pickups with a sexy logo and a backstory about being hand-wound by master craftsmen. Except here's the big difference. Speakers actually affect your sound, like an awful lot. A pair of Carnivores will do more for your sound than any overpriced hunk of copper jammed into a plastic bobbin ever will. But of course, that brings us to nobody's gonna see them. They live behind the grill cloths in the dark alone. And guitar players are visual creatures. We judge tone with our eyes and confidence with our pedal boards. That's why you'll see thousands of morons spend half a paycheck on pickups because they've been trained to chase tone like it's a fucking Pokemon evolution. if I just swap this one part, then I'm finally gonna be good. Meanwhile, the speaker, that thing that actually makes the sound, never even enters their tiny, smooth brains. Let's be honest. These speakers could end world hunger, cure tone deafness, and perform sexual favors on you between takes, and it still wouldn't matter, because guitarists don't actually want to be unique. They just say they do. What they really want is to be accepted by the tone cult, to buy the same gear, use the same IRs, play the same chugs, and convince themselves that this is individuality. They don't want to stand out, they want to be seen standing in line with the other sheep. In his 30s, 5150s, tube screener. It's a fucking religion! And the carnivore? It's a heretic. A beautiful, fire-breathing heretic that'll probably get burned at the stake for daring to sound different.
How would you feel about making a change?
We fear change.
The thing to remember about making music is that it's supposed to be art, a form of expression that makes somebody actually feel something. And in the case of modern metal, apparently that something is the urge to take a nap. Two of the most unique bands ever, Gwar and Devo, didn't start out as bands, but they started out as art projects. And the thing about art is, painting with more than one color is allowed. And that's worth repeating for today's guitar players, that you don't have to keep using the exact same shade of beige that your heroes used. The carnivore is a new color, and it's a damn good one. Will it reshape the way we record guitars? Not fucking likely. That would require courage. Courage to stand apart from the herd. And metal, one of the most rebellious forms of music on the planet, has turned into a safety blanket for people terrified of taking a risk. And honestly, that's just pathetic. Now, if you're tired of being pathetically mediocre, check out this video right here. It's a microphone designed specifically for guitar cabs. It gets you killer sound with minimum fucking around. And it's not an SM57, it's just plain awesome.